Kirby has had so many great adventures, and a lot of them took place on the Switch. And the first new game we got was Kirby Star Allies. The Switch had only been out for just about a year at this point, and we had already gotten games like Mario Odyssey and Breath of the Wild, which completely redefined what their series were known for. So when I heard a new Kirby was coming out, my expectations were high.
It's not what I expected, but I'll take it.
I'm willing to admit my expectations were a little too high going into this game. With other Nintendo IPs getting such groundbreaking changes, I just expected more. But as it is, Kirby Star Allies is a good game. It has a very typical Kirby story where Kirby is just minding his own business, and all of a sudden it starts raining hearts out of the sky, which at this point is pretty typical of Dreamland, but it's Kirby's job to figure out why this is happening. We do have a Buff King DDD this time, so that's definitely a step in the right direction.
Why can't I stop looking at this?
At its core, this is a typical 2D Kirby adventure, sucking up enemies, taking their powers, and using it to destroy everything in your path, all while being the cutest pink puffball you could ever imagine. The new bread and butter of this game, though, is the friends you make along the way. Kirby now has the ability to befriend any enemy in his path, turning up to 3 enemies into allies for the adventure. There are other Kirby games that have multiplayer options, but this is the first that really makes it its main selling point, and for what it is, it works really well. There is a huge focus on multiplayer throughout the game, allowing you to play with up to 4 friends in a typical Kirby adventure, and though I think it would have been better if we could all play as Kirby, being able to play with 4 friends is a great time.
Too bad I won't be able to do that, because who has friends these days? I do still have this. I'm so lonely.
Having 4 players on screen at any given time kind of limited what they could do with level design. So compared to some other notable Kirby games like Kirby's Return to Dreamland, this feels like a much easier and simplified Kirby experience, which isn't something I love for a game series that is already catered towards being easy and simple. The core of any Kirby game is not going to be that incredibly challenging, but splitting the work up between 4 characters and having levels that are simpler than ever makes this game an absolute breeze. Even the replayability is slightly less because all of the hidden collectibles are kind of just out in the open. Sure, there are some exceptions, and it's better than older Kirby titles that would put collectibles in the worst possible locations, but having the collectibles sit out in the open kind of defeats the purpose. But most of the fun to be had here is in the couch co-op multiplayer. When I would play this with friends, it was always a great time. Having 4 people on screen at one time is a little chaotic, but that's part of what makes it fun. Similar to Kirby and the Crystal Shards on the N64, you can combine abilities together, though there's definitely a lot more limitations. It's still a fun idea, where you can combine elements with weapons to do devastating attacks, or just some overall special moves that wouldn't be possible otherwise. I had a blast going through and seeing all of the different combinations that me and my friends could put together to see what would work, and they were all both fun to use and useful. If you've played other Kirby games, there were a ton of returning powers to use, and though there are a lot of environmental puzzles that make it so you have to use a certain character or power, playing with all of the tools available makes this so much fun. And as much as the multiplayer is a great time, there were some design choices I don't really understand. There are friend moves that seem like they were made more so for single player than multiplayer, because it has one player taking control of the entire experience where all of the other players just have to sit there and wait for it to be over, which I understand they can't have every single part of the game be multiplayer focused, but giving them something to do would be better than nothing. And being guided by one player through a quarter of a level is just not intuitive or fun for anyone. And enjoyment-wise, when you're playing with friends, this is an awesome time. The only time I really ever have issues is when I'm playing single player.
I can't explain why, but this caused me physical pain.
I assume a lot of the people who beat through this game did so in single player, and if you're looking for a typical Kirby experience where you play through it by yourself, it's not really made for that. You can do it and it works fine, but compared to pretty much all of Kirby's other adventures, it is just not as fluid. All of the problems that I had with the game itself, like it being easy and linear, are expanded on when you play by yourself, and you do get a team full of allies to help you out, but they do a little more than just help. The AI pretty much plays the entire game for you, going and defeating enemies I would have gotten myself and overall taking away from the experience for the one player. It's definitely playable, but it's not the intended way to experience the game. But one of the best parts in the entire experience is all of the fan service that was added. Through updates to the game, they added a ton of new characters to play as, coming from most of Kirby's best adventures. And once you beat the game, you can replay it as any character you want. You can throw Kirby right in the trash because I'm playing as Rick. Being able to play through the game as so many different characters is just fun. If you haven't played Kirby Star Allies and you're playing with friends, I think it's 100% worth your time. But if you're going to play through it by yourself, I think there are other games that are better worth your time and money. Next, we got Super Kirby Clash. I can't be the only one who remembers Team Kirby Clash Deluxe.
Oh, I am? Well, that's probably fair.
This is a sequel to Team Kirby Clash Deluxe, which was a game they made from a side mode in Kirby Planet Robobot, so when this got announced, I was pretty confused. I am all for free-to-play games, as long as that free-to-play element isn't purely gacha. And this is sitting comfortably on that line. Gameplay-wise, this is fine. You play as Kirby, who in this game is a mercenary for hire, doing quests by defeating large bosses, and I can't lie, that part is pretty cool. By playing the game, you level up, earn resources, and can upgrade your weapons and armor, which as an idea works really well, but this is really held back by the gacha mechanics. There is a vigor meter in the top right corner that's depleted a small amount every time you go on a mission, and in the early game that doesn't really matter, but as you level up and time goes on, it becomes way more of an issue. If you only plan on playing this for short spurts once a day, that's fine, but if you wanted to sit down and play this for an extensive session, you are going to have to spend money. There's also these crystal apples, which are used for pretty much everything in the game, and though there is an easy way to generate them every single day, you use so many of them once you get far enough in the game that you either have to wait a very long time to level, or you can just spend the money, and I'm not that kind of guy. I think this would have been a pretty solid game. If you just got a Switch for the first time and this was available, I think it's a good starting point, but I'm the type of person who would rather pay the money and play a full game. But if you're not bothered by the freemium gameplay, then I think this is fine, and you may think it's worth checking out. Not too long after that, we got Kirby Fighters 2. I can't be the only one who remembers Kirby Fighters 1.
Really? Again? I guess I deserve it.
Similar to Super Kirby Clash, Kirby Fighters 2 is a sequel to a game that was based off of a game mode coming from Triple Deluxe. But this time it wasn't free to play, it cost $20 on the eShop. And that was enough to have me pick this up and have a great time. I'm a huge fan of any platform fighter, so when this was coming out, I knew I was gonna pick it up. And though it's not as complicated or engaging as similar games, it is still a really good time. The character selection is pretty solid, having a bunch of Kirby's best transformations of all time, including some new ones like a wrestler Kirby, which is something I didn't expect but love, and getting new forms for a side game like this is something that I love to see. The gameplay is pretty solid and responsive, and during the times where I played this online, there were people who got incredibly good at this. I'm talking better than I could ever possibly dream of getting, but having a Kirby platform fighter with online support was a good idea. It's a Nintendo game, so the online play was spotty, but when it worked pretty well. The best part about this game, hands down though, is the story. It's not a gripping narrative where King Dedede and Meta Knight send Kirby a letter, which apparently he couldn't understand.
I'm not sure if that means Kirby can't read, but if so, we have something in common.
The story mode has you doing battles to climb a tower and eventually fight Meta Knight and Dedede. It's simple, but it's not about the destination, it's 100% about the journey. This is a diet roguelike where every time you play through this, you're going to have a different experience. You pick your character and battle through different levels of the tower, but after every single battle, you're given the option to pick a buff. This could be anything from gaining more XP to doing more damage, or having your ally do more damage, and every single thing you pick has a consequence. There are so many times where I'd be between two different things and either win or lose because of what I chose. And this is the perfect way to add replay value to a game. Sure, there's barely any narrative to the story at all, but any game where I can play it time and time again, having a different experience every time I do so, is something that I will always appreciate, especially when it's only priced at $20. And I really hope we get more games like Kirby Fighters 2 and less like Super Kirby Clash in the future. But the next game is the Kirby game that everyone had been asking for a very long time, with Kirby and the Forgotten Land.
This is everything to me, and honestly, I don't know how I'm going to go on from here.
I know I'm not the only one who's been asking for Nintendo to bring Kirby into the world of 3D for a very long time, and I'm really surprised it took this long to get there, but now that I have it, I can die happy. Compared to some of Nintendo's other 3D games, this feels the most like Mario 3D World, where it has a very linear stage structure similar to a 2D Kirby game, but it allows you to navigate through the world in a 3D environment, having some sections that are somewhat linear and others that are extremely open, allowing you to explore to your heart's content. Like a lot of Kirby games we've gotten in the past, a portal opens up above Dreamland and starts sucking in everything in sight. It seems like every time Kirby takes a nap, someone opens a portal to some other dimension. Just give him a break. After getting sucked through the portal, Kirby wakes up in a forgotten land.
Oh, he said the name!
The world is a post-apocalyptic nightmare, and it plays really well into the overall story of the game. When he gets there, Waddle Dees are getting kidnapped left and right by crows, and of course, being the great guy he is, Kirby takes it upon himself to save them. He meets Elfilin, a cute little cat-like creature that helps him out along the way, and you get to explore one of the best worlds Kirby has to offer. Every level is full of collectibles and side goals that'll keep you playing this game over and over again. Whether it's finding all of the hidden Waddle Dees or figurines in every level, there is so much to do that I found myself replaying every level 2 or 3 times just so I could experience everything this game had to offer. The main enemy organization is the Beast Pack, which are just giant animals, and I love them. Most of the bosses in this game are part of this crew, and I don't know if it's their simple designs or the role they play in the story, I just love them. Whether it's Clawreline or Silly Dillo, I think all of them are well designed. Even Tropical Terror, who's not part of the Beast Pack, but I do like beating him up because he has a soul patch. Do you think they would make a Kirby game without having to fight a giant tree? That is this series' #1 thing. There were new abilities added to the game, like the Drill Hat, which allows you to drill underground, and the Ranger, which straps Kirby to the teeth. And even though there were only 12 different types of copy ability, all of them work incredibly well even in 3D. I was worried that Kirby wouldn't make the jump to 3D as well as I hoped, but he did surprisingly well. All of the abilities are fun to use, especially when you level them up by playing the game. Once you complete a world, you're given a challenge map, which you can beat in order to upgrade your abilities, and the fact that I can pick what abilities I want to upgrade throughout the game is something I love to this day. It is kind of annoying there are walls that prevent you from upgrading when you want to, like needing to find the blueprints to give to Waddle Dee, but progressing through the game wondering what the next form of the ability is going to be is so much fun. And there weren't just copy abilities, there was the new Mouthful mode. This allows Kirby to suck up various objects throughout the game. Whether it's a vending machine, a filing cabinet, a cone, or even a full-size sedan, Kirby gets to suck up real-world objects which serves somewhat as a copy ability. But there is just something about seeing Kirby wrap his body around a sedan that I just love. Unlike a copy ability, you can't upgrade these, which is kind of disappointing. And they do just kind of appear wherever you might need them in any given level, but I like it so I'll always defend it. As you progress through the game, you save more and more Waddle Dees. And they don't just sit around and do nothing, they go back to your hub world and allow you to unlock new options to explore. There's a good amount of mini games available to play, like a fishing mini game, which immediately makes this game of the year. Kirby can work in the food industry and serve up lunch, or even fight in a coliseum in various death matches, which is one of the things I really love about this game. When you hop into the world, you start off with pretty much nothing, but exploring the levels and finding all of the side objectives unlocks more for you to do. The more Waddle Dees you save, the more options you get to explore, which inspired me to go back to all of these levels time and time again to see everything I could possibly find. Without spoiling the story, especially towards the end, it gets incredibly dark, because the final boss of this game is uniquely terrifying even in the Kirby franchise. This pink little puffball fights gods, and somehow I'm still terrified by what happened here. But as I see it, this was the perfect turning point for the Kirby franchise. From Return to Dreamland on the Wii, all the way to Star Allies on the Switch, there were a couple Kirby games that were great, but all had pretty much the same feeling. So to get a brand new Kirby experience in a 3D environment is exactly what I had been begging for years. I just hope that whatever new Kirby games we get in the future do something like this. And in the same year as Forgotten Land, we got Kirby's Dream Buffet. And this is one of my favorite Kirby spin-offs of all time. This is a Kirby racing game that takes inspiration from Fall Guys, Kirby Air Ride, and Katamari Damacy to make something truly unique. This was the first new spin-off game we got for the Switch that wasn't a sequel to a pre-existing Kirby franchise, and there is not a day that goes by where I do not want more of this. Kirby gets shrunk down by the Dream Fork and is now very small, and he and his other Kirby friends are on a race to see who can eat the most. This is an extremely simple game. You start off on one side of a track and race to the other, eating as much as you possibly can along the way without falling off the side. You can fly off the side, you just have to fly back up. But the goal is to be the first one to get to the cakes at the end of the level. At the end of each stage, there are 3 cakes, ranging in size, and the more you eat, the bigger you get. The bigger your Kirby gets, the easier it is to knock others out of the way, and you move faster. And the goal of the game is not to win the race, it's to be the biggest Kirby at the end of any given challenge. The best mode mode in this game's bread and butter is the Grand Prix, which has you do a race, a minigame, a second race, and then battle it out in a battle royale. And after all of the challenges are done, whoever ate the most wins. So you don't necessarily have to even win the race. As long as you're eating everything in your path, you can still win the game. After the races and minigame, you battle it out in a battle royale, which essentially works as bumper balls from Mario Party, except this time you get to eat a lot of food. I'm glad we finally got a Kirby game that just has the focus of him eating as much as he possibly can. And to have this be a very, very loose spiritual successor to Air Ride makes me happy. And to get all of that for only $15 was the icing on the cake.
I just checked and that joke was so bad it lowered my credit score.
This is the perfect pick up and play Kirby side game, with so many unlockables that'll keep you coming back time and time again. And even though there are some issues like not being able to select what track you're on, which is a design choice I don't understand, especially when you're playing single player, I can't imagine it would be that hard to add a menu. But for a cheap little side game, it's like they made this specifically for me. Especially for the price, I consider this a must play. And the last new Kirby game we got for the console was Return to Dream Land Deluxe. The original Return to Dream Land came out for the Wii, and it is a game that I love dearly. And I didn't expect to get another Kirby game the year after we got 2 in 1 year, but you'll never hear me complaining about that. Like so many other Kirby games, a portal opens up above Dreamland, and this time a ship comes barreling through, shooting out parts along its path, and Kirby and friends go to figure out what is happening. But instead of getting sucked into a portal and having to go deal with that, this time Kirby decides to be a helpful friend and help his new friend Magolor collect all of the parts of his ship. Something that he definitely will not regret later. Like I said before, the Wii version was the first Kirby game we got in a long time that brought the standard Kirby adventure back onto a home console. And this game looked fine on the Wii, but I don't think Kirby has ever looked better than he does in this game. I know a lot of people aren't a fan of the new outline that got put on Kirby and most of the world, but to me, I really like this design choice. I can understand preferring the original, but to say this looks bad is just wrong. In my opinion, this has the best soundtrack in Kirby's history, where every time I played this, I would find myself humming the songs from this game at random times during the day. Going back to Star Allies after playing this game is a night and day difference. You can really tell that Star Allies was meant to be a multiplayer game, because all of these levels are deep and engaging with tons of hidden secrets to find, with fast and snappy gameplay where Star Allies is fun, but it doesn't feel like as complete of a package as this does. The base game is just more challenging, having better obstacles and enemies, and that's even enhanced by having a hard mode. The extra mode is so much fun. It reworks most of the levels to have more enemies that are harder to fight, and bosses that have new moves they didn't before. Every part about this game that was great on the Wii is here and enhanced. Especially the new epilogue, where you get to play as Magolor, and just like Kirby Dream Buffet, I feel like this was added just for me. Playing as Magolor at first is not that great because he is really weak, but while exploring every single level you collect fruit fragments, which allow you to build your magic back up, making you stronger and more powerful, also giving you the selection of what you want to upgrade and when. The epilogue itself is not super long, and you have to beat the game in order to unlock it, which I totally understand, but as someone who's beaten the game on the Wii, I really just wanted to hop into the new content. And I'm not saying I had a bad time beating Return to Dreamland again, because this game is incredible, but after playing this game mode, I would love for a full side game to just be another version of this. I doubt that we'd ever get a Magolor spin-off game, because we haven't gotten that for Meta Knight or DDD, so I don't think he's first in line, but a man can dream. And having all these great new Kirby games available on Switch was incredible. But there's also so many NSO titles that got brought over to the console. A lot of what is considered Kirby's best adventures were brought over here, making this truly one of the best times to be a fan of Kirby.
Playing these games has me wanting to channel my inner Kirby, but I can't do that until Nintendo gives me a new Kirby Air Ride.